Welcome. I'm Delia Quigley. Join us as we interview ourselves along with a cast of powerful wise women here on Five Body Wisdom. So Delia, what have you been up to since the last episode? Checking my likes? Seeing if the women are downloading and listening to our show? And, yep, I'm happy to say the tribe is building and coming together to support us. That's wonderful news. And now we have a whole new episode featuring the Wize Woman. So, Delia, you mentioned the Wize Woman tribe in your last episode, episode 1, Body Parts. And you used a few of their quotes intersected into the episode. But perhaps people would like to know who exactly are the wise women of your tribe. I expanded my radar when I was thinking about putting this show together, and I wanted to include all the many wonderful, intelligent, capable, intuitive, wise women that I know and I have known over my lifetime. Wise women who enrich the lives of those around them. They can be artists, writers, storytellers, poets, mothers, healers, midwives, activists, there's dancers, professionals from all walks of life. Not only do I include them in my tribe, but I call forward those wise women whom I haven't met and I don't know, who would love to be a part of this community to raise the vibration of love on our planet. The women I speak about in this episode are wise women of a certain age. That comes from my thinking about the patriarchal, virgin, mother crone stages that women have been forced, led to believe is how we live out our existence. So, the virgin, all very sexual, right? The virgin, then the mother, and then the toothless crone. When she reaches menopause, and for some reason all her teeth fall out and her hair gets thin and gray, and she is no longer viable to society or to men. So I like to rethink that. I like to reshape it. I'm not the first woman to rethink these old tropes, but personally, I've experienced life as a spiritual being, having a human experience. After 40 years and thousands of hours working with women as a spiritual teacher, I finally embraced my power. I know, it took a long time. But as a result, I understood what is being asked of women in this incarnation. Presently, through this podcast, Five Body Wisdom, that the point is to communicate the experience, the knowledge that was gifted to me and gifted to so many other wise women. But Delia, you digress. What are those stages that you want people to know about? All right, so I'm thinking child, mother, spiritual warrior, wise woman. What do you think? Honestly, I think you're going to have a tough time with the spiritual warrior label. The warrior word, yeah. I've already encountered some strong disagreements about that one. But when I entered my 50s, something shifted for me. I had this strong, rather fierce yoga practice going on, and I connected to the warrior archetype, but the spiritual warrior. And I saw how wrong we'd gotten it in our culture, that I wasn't moving into the crone phase, but I was moving into a phase that was so much more powerful, so much more intelligent. Okay, amazing. So was there a timeline? How long did that phase last? I'd say that phase of spiritual warrior just kept getting stronger, more powerful, lasted about 15 years. So when I started to move into my wise woman phase, I was, I'd say about 65. All right, so let's talk about the dream you had recently. Yes, all right. It was a fascinating dream. I'd been working on this whole life stages episode for a woman, moving into the wise woman, and I had this dream that the life stages of a woman are like the Russian dolls. Those little dolls that if you unscrew one, there's another one inside, and take that out and you unscrew it, and there's another one inside until you get down to these little tiny dolls. And what it showed me was how the woman we are to become already lives within the other. And that woman we are to become is just waiting to emerge at the proper time. We have been gifted this lifetime as a woman, a female. And this responsibility does not come without strings attached. As a woman, you will battle your whole life to be heard, to be seen, to be understood. There are those who would silence you, weaken your powers, covet your sex, and sabotage your efforts to rise up and claim your place in the world. But always remember, life cannot go on without you. You, wise woman, giver of life, warrior, mother, healer, child.
The way I live my life now is a result of a lifetime of learning. This part of my wise woman life brings a quiet calmness that makes me a better friend and family member. I listen more. My inner critic is not so loud anymore. I've learned to tell her, hush. A lifetime perspective reveals a balance in how I look at things. And here is a quote that I like very much. It is not our task to judge the worthiness of our path. It is our task to walk our path with worthiness. For me, this quote is a guide to living a meaningful life.
That was my beautiful friend, Christine Crepine, who somehow over these last 25 or 30 years has managed to slip into just about all my books with quotes and stories about her life. And I always appreciate hearing what she has to say. And it reminded me of a quote, a really nice quote that I came upon by none other than John Lennon. And he says, when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down, happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life.
In this wise woman period of my life, I'm enjoying the slower pace, the letting go of the ego, not having to judge myself on every mark I make, allowing myself more time for play and exploration. It feels good and right to trust that I've planted a lot of seeds and they will bring fruit that I will process in a creative way.
And that was Wise Woman tribe member Pat Fenda, artist, pastel artist actually, performer, actress, another one of those Renaissance women who were born curious and just never stopped learning, exploring. She's a real extrovert and loves being with people, so she's always planting seeds. All right, Delia, isn't it story time? Yes, yeah, I have a good story. This story is really about transition and transformation. So it's really about the time when I was able to make a shift from my warrior stage, from my spiritual warrior stage, moving into my wise woman's phase. And I knew it because, well, there's certain cycles we go through in life, and 65 on, you begin to move into really, the final performance, the final stage of one's life. And you question, what am I going to do with this time? And I found myself in a very difficult position. I had been living in a beautiful place and I had to leave it. And I was very uncertain as to what to do. Here we go. Here's the story. My life is full of transitions. And one of the major occurrences happened around 2018. I've been living in this old stone house on 8 acres with a pond. my pups, Maya and Seamus, my yellow-eyed cat Tessa. And the house sold, the land sold, and it was time to go. But it came as a surprise. I didn't expect it. And I was really taken off guard by having to make this big transition. I really loved waking up in the morning to the birds singing. I loved walking around the pond, greeted by the beavers in the evening when they slapped their tails. I loved seeing the bear when he'd walk through the yard on a hot summer day and take a dip in the pond. And on those full moon nights, the coyotes and their pups would be yipping and howling up at the moon. I'd become one of nature's creatures here on this land, and then suddenly I was falling into empty space, unsure of myself. I imagined a climber on the cliff face of El Capitan losing the grip, and just the breath catches, heart races, eyes probably cloud over momentarily. I had that feeling for a day or two, too long, if you ask me. Soon after, a black snake arrived to ease my landing. You see, I had created an art studio in the basement of the house. One day I had found an abandoned snake skin hanging from the wall. At the second glance, I saw what was supposed to be a black feather. But when I reached for it, well, of course, because I collect feathers, it shifted, moved, grew eyes, and then this long neck extended, contemplating me, inquiring, like, who was I? I recoiled in fear. I thought my life was in danger. But later I realized it never was. It was never in danger. Yep, I Googled her, this black snake coming into my workspace. And she turned up to be harmless for me and deadly to rodents. But she also spoke of transformation and the life-death-life cycle. That same cycle that seems to follow me from one change to another. You are always reinventing yourself, I am repeatedly told by friends, as they watch me repeatedly reinvent my life to create new growth. Black Snake reminds me that I'm merely shedding my old skin. I am to prepare for a new one that will bring transformation. When the Black Snake returned again and again, I photographed her at the window, on the wicker chair, sliding through the eye of the deer skull. When she stretched out of her nest, I took a photo then too. And when she came to me in my dream, I was no longer afraid. I layered the images of the Black Snake together, and one by one, the first of the mandalas began to emerge. Black Snake medicine, I thought, Kundalini rising, my totem, my guardian. For those skeptics, I say live in nature. Know that you are nature. Listen. That was a while ago. The move is long complete. It was time to mourn my loss once I left that old stone house. And one night I dreamt that I was curled around all the things I had left behind. Black Snake medicine tells me, go ahead, release the past. Trust in the new birth occurring. That old skin left behind will fertilize my connection to Mother Earth. When I woke from this dream, my wild soul ached to howl. It ached to be heard. Shedding this tough old skin was not so easy now that I'm older. Now I have left behind so many skins in a long trail marking my journey. My journey that was once clouded became clear. My eyes beheld a new beginning, a new life that has brought me here.
A wise woman, or the crone, is a mature, aged maiden and a fearless warrior who holds wisdom and experiences of our past. I am a 72-year-old woman who has matured with gratitude for life self-care, and a fostering of strength and resilience. I have developed into a woman who can now offer strong support and provide tools for whoever might need some knowledge. When I turned 70 years, I did not know what to do with myself. Do I repeat what I have done in the past, something I am familiar with, or do I accept an unknown journey to be renewed? I actually felt I was fighting with myself. I was lost in the in-between worlds. I went to a therapist to help me find grounding and acceptance and validation for who I was and now who I am. She simply advised me to rename my future. I sat with that advice, and it took a bit of time, and I have become the wise woman and the crone who is satisfied and is retired from her past and has calmed and spends quality time spreading love and happiness and light to friends and family, and enjoys the nature of just being.
That was wise woman Renee Huntley, whom I met many years ago when we were both studying Clarissa Pinkola Esté's brilliant book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. Changed our lives. If you haven't read it, then you must. Okay, time for a change of pace, Delia, and I mean that literally. So, what do you have in store for us? Isn't there a new segment you've been wanting to feature? Yes, I've been wanting to feature a segment called What's Running You? You know, when I created the Mindful Mandala cards, it was really about what emotion is running you. What emotion is dominating your obsessive monkey mind in the moment, keeping you from focusing, reducing anxiety, keeping you from really living a joyful, happy life. But shouldn't the mental body in a wise woman have ideally evolved into the wisdom body? Yes, true, but you can't have one without the other at a certain point in your life. It's just that natural evolution, right? We talked about the child, the mother, the spiritual warrior, and then the wise woman, all stages of a woman's evolution. And so the wise woman is more, mentally, physically even, cherishing a slower pace, more peace, more hydration. And she just loves telling young people what to do or how to prevent their lives from going off the rails. Of course, knowing full well that they may not listen. Okay, so do you have a specific criteria for becoming a wise woman or being a wise woman after a certain age? Well, everybody's different. Everybody's lives are different. But it's really about experience. You've lived long enough to have gathered knowledge and wisdom to be able to know who you are, know what brings you into harmony with others, know what makes you happy. And if you don't know these things, and if you don't know how good you are at what you do in life, whether you're an artist or you're a professional or you're a mother, if you don't know by this point into your late 60s and 70s, then you haven't been paying attention. So Delia, you're going to wrap this episode up and give us a little teaser of what's coming next? Yes, episode 3 will feature the spiritual warrior stage of a woman's life. And that's the stage where, she's easing out of her 40s into her 50s and she hits menopause and everything shifts. It's not just that she starts sweating like crazy and her body changes. Her energy body takes a huge shift at that time. And that's what we'll be exploring here on 5 Body Wisdom. Interviews with ourselves, Thanks so much for listening. I'm your host, Delia Quigley. I'll see you next time.